I would like to welcome all of you to the NfoLD webinar series. NfoLD is the Network for Life Detection, and it's a research coordination network from NASA. It's an enterprise that seeks to connect scientists and technologists around the themes of life detection. And part of this webinar series is to seek interesting speakers who cross that threshold. And today we have no better example of that with Marianne and Pablo, who will be talking about their exciting project called InVADER. And so thank you very much all for connecting today. We have these every 2 months. We're trying to increase the frequency. So if you know anybody or if you would like to speak, it's meant to be rather informal. The point is to get to know about each other's work and have a conversation around it. And so with that, Pablo and Marianne, the floor is yours. And thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us today.
Right, thanks, Sanjoy. So I'll start here. And please let me know if somebody gives me a thumbs up that you're seeing this correct in the big screen.
Looks good.
Yep. All right. Cool. Okay. So let me. All right. Cool. Okay. So today we're gonna give a little update on where we are with this project, and don't worry, I will spell out the acronym in the next slide. But so we wanted to share with everybody where we are and where we're going with this project, and specifically highlighting some of our education and public outreach efforts, which are led by Marianne. And the rest of the work that you'll see here, it's made by a lot of people, definitely not me. I'm just the messenger. So Lori is here, so something you don't like, it's her fault. Something you like, you know, it's everybody's win. But anyway, so this is a PSTAR project that, as you see there in the date, was funded in 2018. So we're 3 years in. So of course, because of COVID and other complications, we are extending the project at least for a year. So we are still not done. So still working on this. So the fast explanation of what InVADER is. So you have the acronym there in the first bullet. Stands for In Situ Vent Analysis Divebot for exobiology research. The divebot was a fun one that we need to figure out there to make it work. But I think the point comes across that what we're doing here is we are building, we think, and I think we know now, that this is the most advanced subsea sensing payload in the sense that we are bringing capabilities to the ocean that we didn't have before. Not just NASA, but other agencies, as we would see in a few slides. So a few of the dimensions or the drivers for this project is that we are bringing in situ very fast and long duration analysis now in the ocean. This means that we are moving away from the traditional state of affairs that requires sampling, either water or fluids and rocks from the seafloor. And instead of getting the samples, taking them to a lab and waiting and the cost that entails, we are removing the need for all of that by bringing the labs to the seafloor or subsea in general. And where we're going with this is we're pushing for autonomy as applied to exploring our oceans here, but also in ocean worlds. Hence the interest of NASA in funding this project. So this is a large effort by a large team. Most of this is located here in the US. We have collaborators from the UK, experts in subsea robotics. But you see here a combination of government agencies, non-profit research institutes, universities, of course, and also companies that are supporting all of this effort here. So what we're building is this. This is the hardware, which is just only part of the story. But what you see here is a tower, essentially a tower that is about 4 meters tall, and at the top of which sits this cylinder, this tube that you see there on the top of the tower in both views, and the rest of the tower is basically the yellow part is foam to keep buoyancy, to make this almost weight neutral down at depth. And all the things that you see in the bottom are feet and electronic boxes that allow us to drive the instrument with both power and data. But essentially, the important thing here is the top. Again, as I said before, and this is the real picture of hardware that we have assembled now. And this is a titanium tube, not bigger than well, I guess it's a big poster tube, if you want to look at it that way. Maybe about a meter long and about 20-25 centimeters wide. And all the brains and all the optics that make measurements possible are housed within this tube. So what you see there on the edge of the tube is a window, and that's our window to the world. This is the window through which we do our analysis. Analysis, what are we measuring here? So after many years of design, testing, going back to the drawing board and headaches and whatnot, we validated and verified that we can do these three things. At least this is the three important things. First of all, optical imaging. So we have eyes on the targets, so we can see and create machine vision products. But the important thing where the real science comes out of is the laser Raman spectroscopy mode of the system. So we have a laser that can shoot up to 5 meters from a target. Target can be solid, can be the seafloor, or it can be a chimney, or it could be the fluids that come out of the chimney, or the water itself in the ocean. We're not limited to rocks or fluids. We can do everything. So with Raman, as you know from previous talks here, or if not, then you'll know now. One of the most important data products that you get from Raman is what the mineral composition is of your target. You're getting structure, how things are arranged at the molecular level. So you're getting vibrational spectroscopy effectively, which tells you or allows you to fingerprint the molecular and mineral composition of a target. By playing smartly with this laser and with the way we collect the light out of the sample after we shoot with the laser, we're also able to do time result fluorescence measurements. So fluorescence is a different phenomenon than Raman, as you know. It's very interesting for this application where we're targeting, of course, astrobiology. So we're looking at organic compounds as signatures or fingerprints of life. We are able now to do both analysis at the same time by looking at different time windows on the analysis. So combine all of these elements is you get the context, you get the minerals, but also you get organics that may be trapped or maybe playing a role in the geochemical system under study. So organics, fluorescence, minerals with Raman. So this is an example of some of the data products that we're getting through testing. So on the top row, you see micro images. You see the scale there. The black bar is about 9 millimeters, I think. So we're getting pretty good detail. And what you see here is actually sulfides on a black smoker. So this is nickel, copper, iron, sulfides, so pyrite basically with different cations sometimes. And the corresponding Raman and fluorescence spectra are on the bottom row. And here you see the sharp peaks, typically towards the left of the spectrum. That will be the low wave numbers or high wavelengths, depending on how you look at spectra. But here, what you look at is at the pyrite or the sulfide peaks. And by looking at what peaks are more intense than others, you can get the ratios of what elements or what cations do you have in your sulfide. Again, whether this is chromium or this is molybdenum or lead or copper or iron, of course, or all of that you can derive from the Raman. And when you see towards the red of the spectrum, this is I guess, a composite spectrum of both Raman and fluorescence. Here we open the time-gated system so as to show both data overlapped. So you see all this more, I call it potato shape or more broadband emissions, and that is the fluorescence from the sample. So so you can see that in one single snapshot, if you play with the time smartly, you get both the Raman and the fluorescence data overlapped from your same sample. So that's the advantage of this system, is that you don't need to sample, you don't need to prepare your target, you just shoot, and in sub-second time scales, we're only opening the detector for a few milliseconds, we're getting this data. So this is a real-time, again, ability to do this over time, right? So if you imagine a system like this operating over days or months, the amount of data you can collect, and this is all the real-time high-frequency systems that allow you to capture highly dynamic systems, like for example, Chimneys. You'll see an example of that later in the seafloor. So other practical applications of this is, for example, if you're looking at rocks themselves on the seafloor, for example, a manganese nodule. After doing our stereo imaging, we can calculate how far we are from each of the points of this grid, so that we can effectively and efficiently focus the laser so as to get this raster scan. And from there, we can automatically assign compositional maps that we overlay on the image to tell us what this sample is made of. So this is just an example of 3 minerals that are being identified on this manganese nodule in question. The scale of this is about 5-6 centimeters round, so that's like a fist-size nodule, and we're able to map that out in about 5 minutes to get all these elemental quantitative maps of what's there on the sample. So some of the things that we can do here is we're using very advanced machine vision tools. So we can now zoom in on a scene or on a mosaic of pictures and select one, and we can now reconstruct the 3D structure of this area, in this case of the chimney, even if it seems far away and it seems low resolution. By using these smart algorithms, now we can actually look at the texture. This texture is one of an additional, of course, scientific data stream that we're using to really make sure that we're looking at the right biomolecule or biosignature attached to the right elements or minerals with this context that provides this texture and this almost a 3D view of what we have here on the vector. And we also built, as part of this project, Honeybee Robotics built a subsea drill system. And it looks like a Gatling gun for those of you who've seen some war movies. And so Honeybee built this system. They tested it there in their backyard. Here you see Pat and you filling up a pool to really test this at cold temperature, a realistic environment. And on the right side, the video that you see, this is the system actually operating, drilling on a vent material from a previous expedition. And on the bottom right, you see this is the core that we get out of the vent or any rock that is on the subsurface by using this new drill system. So maximum length, I think, is about 6 inches. By ½ inch diameter, you see here on the finger scale, but that's the real rock that we got during testing of this instrument at cold temperature and on a realistic rock. So it works and is ready to fly. So now I borrow Lori a little bit without telling her. So, but Lori will talk a little bit about what the science that we're trying to get here and why this is important. So it's just a minute-long video. Hopefully you can hear the audio. If not, somebody tells me, and then we can get Lori to actually explain it in real life here.
So one of the things we're very interested in is understanding if life could exist on other worlds and if it could emerge in vent systems on Earth. So as we've heard in previous talks in this series, hydrothermal vents form when fluid from groundwater can come up through the ocean crust, forming hydrothermal precipitates known as chimneys. And these chimneys can actually be varied in their mineralogy and in which kinds of life can live there. And some parts of the chimney are newer and some parts are older, and the plume fluid is coming out. And so there's a whole lot of variation in the system that can be analyzed. So one of the important things that this project wants to do is to deploy an instrument to the seafloor and then analyze these different parts of the chimney, including the plume fluid, using laser spectroscopy. And hopefully by understanding which minerals are here, taking samples of those to analyze in the lab, and then taking cores of the solid phases to look at what minerals are present, we can understand if life might be living in these systems, preparing us for eventually taking a similar device or a payload to understand life on another planet.
Right, thanks, Laurie. I don't think I could have done it better. That's a great explanation of what we're doing. This is just one of the use cases of this technology. We'll go into a few others after. So this is testing that we're doing right now, or this is from a couple of months ago, but still current. So we're still tinkering with the instrument. So because we're going to be shooting this instrument at about 5 meters distance subsea, that's our optimal range. So we have to install this in an open large room. In this case, we found a church here in St. Louis, Missouri, where we could install and test the laser beam. And what you see here is, how we set up the system is that basically this is the system that will go into a mission. And now we just have a computer where a user can operate. You see here Laura Rodriguez, our postdoc, getting data, testing. And the idea is that, from any computer, now when we deploy this mission, any computer in the world that is connected and approved, of course, to operate on the network, we can operate the instrument from anywhere, basically, perhaps even a cell phone. We'll see about that. But the idea is that we have simplified everything so that only one engineer or one scientist, in this case, is able to operate and get data in real time until we develop autonomy and we let the system go on its own. So this is things that we're doing as we speak right now, before we're ready to fly next year, 22. So one of the places where we want to go, we still don't have a date for this expedition, but we're working on that with the NSF. So it's a busy map, but if you look at the bottom left corner, you see a little bit more of a high view. Sanjo is seeing it for all day because he's been sitting on orbit. But here you see a couple hundred miles off the coast of Oregon. There is this cable array, and this is an infrastructure that the NSF built over the last 12 years, I believe, that consists of basically a cable. That's why it's called a cable, where this is a service that is brought from land that provides data, high-speed data, and also power to any instrument that you want to plug into the cable. So essentially, it's like an outlet, if you want, where you plug in your cable, your instrument, and then you can access this from anywhere where you have connection to the internet. So that's simple, right? So the idea of establishing this facility for the NSF was that there is very interesting geology that is happening here, where the Pacific and the Juan de Fuca plates touch each other. In particular, the Axial volcano in this caldera that contains outstanding chimney features, like you've seen a couple of pictures and you'll see more in a couple of slides, that really are a very excellent place to understand the interactions between biology and minerals, to the point that we can actually start doing origin of life studies right there. Again, because we have access to power and data, you can deploy multi-year missions, you can deploy instruments, you actually can do a lot of things down there, where it will be very difficult if you can only use robots or one-time off missions, right, to do this for a few days. Here you have a permanent infrastructure to do science. So very important facility here, with a lot of science being done over the last 10 years. So our objective is to plug in this system to the cable. That's why you saw the tower. The tower is supposed to be next to one of these red boxes, actually the one that says 3D there, and just plug in, like you would plug your computer to the wall, and voila, we're online and we can do the science that we can. So this summer, a couple of months ago in September, our team went on an expedition to this very same place, so that we can learn how it is to work there, and pick landing sites for our mission in future. So this is the Donson RV. This is a University of Washington operated vehicle. This is NOAA / NSF vessel. And there's only 4 of their class in the world. It's a scientific vessel, so a lot of it's at sea all the time. But over summer, it goes and does operations at the cable out of the port of Newport in Oregon, typically. So one of the instruments or facilities that this boat carries is this ROV, this remotely operated vehicle, which is called JSON, and this is a Woods Hole Institute of Oceanographic Institute out of Massachusetts that operates this robot, and this is one of the best robots in the world. And what it can do is really can bring heavy payloads on the bottom tray. Here you see it's called an elevator. That's what you can put that stuff there that you want to deploy undersea, and you can also get samples, put them there, and then pick them up and bring it up to the surface. So the ROV has 2 arms, and you can see them here, and those arms are very mobile. They have 6 degrees of freedom, so you can really do very amazing things downstream. For example, this stuff here. So this is the control room of the robot installed on the ship. And here you see a number of screens, very mission control-like, which is exactly what it is. It's a mission control system where a few operators and scientists can work together to execute tasks on the seafloor. So here what you see on the left side is the robot has deployed this station that you see here, some cameras and some sensors on the tripod. And on the right side, you can see one of our campaigns where we collected a rock. So you see the hand of the ROV, that we were able to select that particular rock because of certain features of it, namely fun colors and textures. But the arm is so dexterous that you can actually grab samples the size of a fist or a tennis ball pretty easily and bring them back to Earth. Right? So this is what we did for a few days at sea last summer. The places in question that we are studying are these active vent systems that are bringing fluid up and precipitating sulfides and other minerals, and where life really likes to be. This is a very happy, life-friendly environment where some people think life started, not in this particular vent, but this particular system. But this is why we're going here. This is very active systems that still are pretty unknown. Different chimney. This one is extinct. This one is old. That's why you see more growth and a little more boring, less colors, fewer colors. But this is another chimney that we're studying here in the same area. So we picked a couple of places to land in future when we have a chance, and that's where we will go. So this is. Marianne will talk about students in a few minutes, but here we have Jasmine, which is one of our interns. You see on the left, day 1, all very happy and very focused. Day 2, or actually day 10, I think it was that on the right side. Everybody's tired, everybody's pissed, but we still have to do the hard work. So, one of the things that this cruise does, and this is thanks to Deb Kelly and her team at University of Washington, is they have made sure they have asked NSF to guarantee that at every cruise over the summer, and this is going for like about 80 days a year between July and September, there's always students that are invited to come aboard to partake on scientific operations, engineering tasks of operational maintenance, and in general, scientific activities that go along this type of work. There is a very heavy student presence, and again, this is all thanks to Deb Kelly at UW and her team, who have pioneered all this blue education, as they call it, to bring people and new students into the ocean. So as I said before, we're ready to fly, essentially. So what we've done in the last few years is to engage with other partners beyond NASA that are going to allow us to plug in our instrument, InVADER, the tube that you saw earlier, into mobile vehicles as well as the tower. So because the tube that you saw is detachable, we can move it anywhere we want. So next year, we're going to plug it in onto an autonomous underwater vehicle, an AUV, here, mounted on the front, and scan the seafloor as we go along on a patch of the ocean, and combine all that with other measurements from the surface that will tell us a lot of things about the seafloor. For example, things like bathymetry. So this is the type of maps that we'll get by using instruments tested and proven already by NOAA and commercial partner Kongsberg. Our instrument, InVADER, what it's doing is all this two-dimensional composition, like I said earlier, for minerals and organics. So these types of maps that we can get, high resolution of what the rocks and the fluids are made of. And by using also sonar acoustic technologies, we can probe underneath the surface or the bottom of the ocean and look at the 3D layering of sediments and other materials, so as to discover perhaps former vents that are now buried under the sediment, which is essentially what we expect to find on Europa or Enceladus. Even it's probably not going to be a fresh vent the first time you look down. It's going to be a sediment field where there may be former vents buried under. So we're playing with these technologies as well as a path to flight, to eventually enable us to do a full-fledged mission to other worlds by using a combination of all of this. Of course, anchored by this PSTAR funded technology to look for minerals and organics at distance, of course. So this is basically what we will be doing next year in this AUV. So we'll mount our instrument on the front. It will be looking at things like active vents in the Atlantic and the Pacific. We'll be looking at extinct vents, former vents, and some of the sediment and baseline environments that we see on the seafloor to account for biological communities and, of course, minerals that happen around these areas. So another concept that we're going to test in next year is that of a more resident system where we have a buoy or a mooring, and that can deploy small vehicles, small ROVs around a central base to look for determined specific things around the landing site, if you want. So I think probably you know where I'm going with this, and this is a situation where we will be, hopefully in our lifetime here. I think some of you are younger than I at this point, so maybe this will be for you. But the idea here will be to eventually land on Europa, and once we figure out how to drill through the ice, then we'll reach the ocean, and then we can deploy submersibles like this, right? That can move around, either tethered or untethered, but just can scout the seafloor and look for those potential life that may exist on the bottom of the ocean or in the ocean itself on Europa. So just to conclude here at the last slide, and I think this is really the summary that I wanted to bring here, because it's important for NfoLD and other networks here, and it's the value that we've been able to show to other agencies beyond NASA for these technologies. So over the years, we have connected with NOAA, BOM, and USDS, which are the agencies that actually spend most money in looking at the ocean, the subsea. And we have been able to find use cases for them that really help them meet their goals and their mission to explore the Earth oceans. Is of course helping NASA to learn how to explore ocean worlds. So this is a very beautiful synergy between agencies that we are, I believe, pioneering. I'm not aware of any other project that is blending 4 different agencies. I could throw in NSF here too, but at least 4 agencies with a core objective that is common to all of them. And thus, beyond exploration is the one that I put there about education. So one of the goals that we have as a project, and of course all of these agencies have, is to really educate the next generation of ocean explorers and to eventually create an ocean literary society. And that's why we do have a very strong EPO program here, which is led by Marianne. And at this point, Marianne, I'll hand it over to you, and just let me know when you need to skip a slide, and I'll do it for you.
Thank you, Pablo. Well, I think the EPO component is clearly the smaller end of this project, since the science and engineering is the major focus, but no less important. And I think that Pablo and Lori, as the science PI, made a very intentional choice to come to Citrus College. We're a 2-year public minority serving institution in Southern California, with 72% of our student body are underrepresented minorities. Next slide, Pablo. So, we've done all the requisite things. We created a website. We've done some social media. You saw Lori's video, and we have a whole series of those videos that are produced on a light board system at our college. And we asked the co-Is to tailor them to the public so that they were accessible to non-scientists as well as scientists. One unique aspect of our EPO efforts has been that we've held all the annual team meetings on the Citrus College campus. And we set the meeting room up with a galley in the back so that students and faculty could come in and listen. Students can see how scientists work together, get a sense of what's happening in this project. And it also brought the team members onto our campus. Prior to COVID, we had anticipated that they would be in classrooms making presentations and meeting more of the students in that way. We've all had to adjust, and that was one of the adjustments that we made as well. If you could go one more for me, Pablo, I'd appreciate it. So also, we intentionally chose the interns for this project from the community college population. And I'll talk a little bit more about why in a minute, but part of what we've done with the interns and with other students is we've made site visits to our co-I sites. For example, Honeybee is not too far from us, and so we were able to go there. We've taken students to JPL. And our intent is just to get the students out to see the kinds of work that professionals are doing in this area, to understand the range of employers that are local to them, and give them ideas about where they may want to take their careers. Can you hit it again? Yeah, thank you. We've done a public talk. Deb Kelly was very gracious and provided a really well-attended on-campus talk for both students, faculty, and members of the community that came onto campus. And we are about to launch a series of talks to the Los Angeles Unified School District. This will be for their high school STEM students and families. I very conservatively anticipate that we'll reach over 1,500 students. I understand that sometimes there are as many as 1,000 students log on to a single talk. So we have a whole series scheduled. Thanks to Pablo, we'll be doing one in the evening in Spanish for the families as well, so that we're accessible to a wider range of public and reaching our goals of a literate public. Next slide. Thank you. So you'll meet the two interns. You saw Jasmine earlier. We also have Adriana. They've since transferred from community college. Jasmine will be finishing her degree in physics at the University of California, Riverside this spring, and Adriana finishing in mechanical engineering at Cal Poly Pomona. The reason why I think Pablo, or I want to believe that Pablo and Lori made this intentional choice to come to community college is because they're aware that, of baccalaureate degrees in STEM, 50% of those people took some or many courses at a community college. We also know that community colleges have a difficult time retaining students, and that attrition from STEM majors is particularly robust. These are long trajectories. They're often, students find them difficult and unfriendly. Maybe they've been undereducated in K-12, so the courses are new to them. They haven't accessed AP courses in chemistry and physics and math before. And so we see this real difference in attrition, about a 20% gap between STEM attrition at the four-year institutions and STEM attrition at the community colleges. Then when we layer in low income, first generation and underrepresented minority STEM students into the mix, we see attrition rates even higher. So we know, though, that the very students that we're looking to include in our STEM areas are concentrated at community colleges. So bringing a project like InVADER and giving us the opportunity to begin to disrupt this national narrative that community colleges are less than, they're junior, their students aren't prepared, has been really very exciting for us. Next slide, Pablo. So my thinking is always, you know, how serious, or are we serious about broadening participation? And if we are really serious about broadening participation, I believe NASA is. If we look at some of the collaborations between NASA and NSF, and in privileging MSIs with some of their projects, I think community colleges have really logical place for projects to situate their EPO efforts. I believe as a social scientist who works in areas of retention and student engagement, that we've got to engage students early in their trajectories if we want to keep them. If we want them to stay in STEM, if we really want diverse workforces, then we've got to engage them very early. A big theme for me has been that we've got to rethink student selection criteria. We tend to see, whether it's an REU or an internship, that there are these artificial levels of performance that students need to meet. Got to have a 3.0 or a 3.5 GPA. But what we see at community colleges is that transcripts often tell us a story of the very, very complicated lives that our students live. They may be caring for multi-generations of family. They're probably working multiple jobs. They're trying to go to school because they're really anxious to move up the socioeconomic ladder, to access jobs and careers that are of interest to them. And so sometimes their GPA may falter, but it doesn't render them any less able, any less excited about participating. And so I believe we really need to rethink selection criteria and look at for whom will inclusion really be transformative, and not just another extracurricular activity. We've got to include students and help them develop this STEM identity and their sense of belonging. They often feel alienated from STEM, at least at the community college level. And we think about mentoring and the importance of mentoring. And I posit that we need to provide mentorship in all kinds of areas. So having the InVADER team provide science mentoring to our interns and other students has been fantastic. But we also need to teach students how to navigate all the barriers of higher ed. And that takes a broader range of mentorship. And then we need to include them in meaningful ways across the life of the project. Would have been very easy for Pablo and Lori to include Jasmine and Adriana, you know, to let them come to the team meetings and then exclude them from there on. But making a space, and I will tell you there was very limited space on the cruise this summer, making a space for Jasmine to attend is again, an intentional choice, a very meaningful choice, and it has impacted her as an individual, and that impact will ripple into her family and her community. So I'm very grateful to Pablo and Lori for reaching out to Citrus College and to me to work with them on EPO. I'm a social scientist, again, not a scientist, so I'm learning right along, and I'm becoming one of the engaged public members in this project, and I've really enjoyed it. And I would just like to encourage all of you who are PIs, who might be PIs in the future, to think deeply about how you can contribute to building a diverse workforce in STEM. That's what I brought today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. I think, you know, Marianne really took on my challenge of let's turn one future sales rep for a technology company into a real scientist in this project. And I think we've already, you know, seen the benefit of, you know, bringing people into the science process early on and you know, get them engaged in that. So I think, you know, Marianne has done a terrific job and is doing a terrific job at really, you know, blending education with high-end science and engineering, which is what this is all about. So there is a website here that you can visit, and I think we have news and updates there and some data that is a bit more in depth on this talk for those of you who are hungry or thirsty for more information. And of course, I think you have my email from the list here, or if not, you know, you have it here, and Marianne's is here as well, in case you have any questions on, you know, perhaps her process to really execute all of her plan, and whether this could be something that you want to do in your own project as well. So Sanjoy, I'll stop here, and I think we have some time for questions, and I'll be happy to answer anything if I can. Here. Thanks everybody for the attention.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marianne and Pablo. It's been absolutely fantastic to see both the scientific vision for what you've already done, InVADER, but also the commitments to engaging the next generation of scientists and focusing on a diverse workforce. I think it's absolutely awesome. So the floor is open for any questions or comments.
I think that the chat is pretty full, but I don't know if there are questions here. Is anybody monitoring the chat for questions? Or
I haven't seen any questions yet, but I guess I can start things off. Marianne, I was very interested by your concept of STEM identity. I think that's key to keeping early career people who don't necessarily see themselves as scientists. If they can capture that STEM identity early, there's a higher chance of them remaining in a discipline. So, I mean, one aspect of maintaining STEM identity is to get involved in projects. But are there any other activities that you do to kind of reinforce an identity around STEM?
Well, we've developed a range of opportunities here. Obviously, we've just got 2 students, you know, really engaged in InVADER, although other students have kind of drifted in and out of the project in different ways. But we're very interested in reaching a lot more students. So we do some, we work with a larger number of students in a project where we get them off campus, visiting sites, doing small scale research projects. We ran a 4-year small scale project that now has been funded by NSF into a much larger project. I will give a shout out to Lori Barge, who's been my co-I and will continue in that role with this next project. But what we do is we take students to some one-day visits, maybe a day-long visit at JPL where they hear career panel talks, they find out a lot of, you know, the community college students come with a lot of misconceptions. They think at JPL, for example, that the only thing they do is build rocket ships. And so to learn that there's this whole range of other activities is really important for them. They often might say that they're interested in physics, but they don't know the difference between applied and theoretical. And so they, you know, we help them learn those kinds of things so that as they move forward in their education, they're making good transfer choices and they're finding clarity in where they want to go with their career. So my point is that engaging them doesn't have to be a full-time exercise. We work with these students 4 times over a course of a year. We try to give them opportunities to develop their STEM identity by increasing their STEM communication skills, by introducing them to lots of scientists and engineers. My students will often say, you know, I want to be an engineer, but I've never met an engineer. So it's important for them to see that, you know, how people work and to have just basic conversation and opportunity to meet them. I think this really helps with their STEM identity. And we hear back from faculty that it increases their engagement in class. When I track their GPAs and their course enrollment, even these small scale types of projects really boost their overall achievement and their movement towards the bachelor's degree. So I think there's lots of ways, and always happy to answer anybody's questions.
Thank you. Yeah.
Other possibilities. Yeah.
Yes, STEM community is important too. I mean, it's even as a PhD holder, it can be feel sometimes lonely to be in academia. So building this core of people who have gone through a process together, I feel is important as well to remain in STEM. Katrina had a additional question. Katrina, perhaps it's easier for you to say out loud.
Yeah, sorry, that was too wordy. And I might have been typing and missed an answer, but I just wanted to say this sounds like an amazing project, both from an outreach standpoint and obviously a scientific standpoint. I have recently transitioned from the more hard research side to being a professor at a predominantly undergraduate and predominantly minority institution. And so I'm always kind of looking for sorts of projects that I can kind of show my students, you know, that they can get involved with science too, that it's not just for people who are at R1s. So this sounds like an amazing opportunity for your students at Citrus College, but are there opportunities for students from other institutions to be involved at various levels?
There have been other students involved in this project. If you go to the website, you'll see a couple of the interns. Different COIs have brought on interns from other schools. In a larger sense, maybe beyond InVADER, I'll say that at Citrus, we work really hard to make connections with 4 years. In some instances, I've written RU projects with the 4 years so that we can combine our students and run a summer research program that might otherwise be difficult for our students to access, both the community college students and the smaller liberal arts school students. You know, I think it's about relationships, and so from, you know, Katrina, my suggestion for you is who can you make friends with in your area. I will think that I will say that I think that right now community colleges are playing a more visible role in NSF grants, and I get a lot of phone calls from universities who want to be in partnership with me. I turn them down if it's a partnership in name only. I'm looking for, you know, substance, what's in it for our students. And if there's that, then I'm always willing to be a partner. And so I encourage any of you to, you know, reach out to your local community colleges and develop something.
Thank you. Anything else? Hey, Joey.
Hi. First off, great talk all around, and this is a really cool partnership. And honestly, I love to see stuff like this. This is really awesome. And I was curious if you all have any kind of social media outlet that we can follow and track, so we can kind of like help publicize what you're doing and also follow for our own sakes.
Of course, there's the website, and then there is an Instagram site that Jasmine posts on in between course assignments and midterms. It's Lori. I I don't have my phone with me. It's
I think it's just InVADER mission. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there is a YouTube video somewhere out there. Let me find it. So yeah, one of the things that we're going to be doing in the next between now and the end of the year is to revisit all of our media that we have. It's almost too much, and we need to find a way to make it a bit more organized so that we can actually do what you propose, which is exactly what we should be doing. The issue is that, as you know, like we spend all the time trying to make it work before we can actually publicize it. So most of the by the time we're done with the engineering effort, we'll be moving on to the next thing before we have time to leisure. But that being said, I just put in a YouTube link there that it explains the project a little bit. It's a 3 minutes long video, so it's pretty short, and it also explains where we are right now and what we're doing in the testing. Basically, it's a more elegant and beautiful way to say all I said in 1 hour, but in 3 minutes. So yeah.
You mentioned you posted a YouTube video link. What do you do that?
Is that in the chat there? Oh, sorry, I was directing the message to Marianne only for some reason. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
No, everybody has it now. Yeah.
Pablo, how do you deal with the scattering issues that you must face with the laser in particulate-rich seawater? Do you compensate with power, or?
Yeah. So in many ways. So one of them is to use a wavelength that scatters less than others. Let's put it in a simple way. So we spent some time tweaking the correct number for the laser wavelength, and then we're using a high power laser. So we use one of the most powerful commercial lasers out there that is compact enough to fit in the tube. But that was a challenge as well to make sure the thermal environment was conducive to that. But yeah, it's mostly ability to understand what the scattering is and where is it coming from, so you can weed it out from your data. Which brings us to the third way that we mitigate that, which is using time-resolved sensing. So we're able to open our detector when we want. So we don't open it and let all the light come in and then we figure out what the data means. No, we actually we're using the time scales that physics uses, right? So fluorescence happens in longer time scales than Raman. So you can actually, if you look closer at the window where Raman happens, you can only get Raman photons. So you forget about fluorescence. And the same goes for scattering. So you can actually, if you know the phenomenon pretty well, which is taking us a lot of time to understand, you can actually find the windows of scattering, Raman, and fluorescence, and you only open your camera exactly when you want, as opposed to open it and see what happens, which is when the problems happen. So those three ways. Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow, so that must be like femtoseconds of like aperture. Or?
No, we can by doing nanoseconds.
Nanoseconds is enough.
Nanoseconds is enough. It's enough to gate out things that we don't like.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Anything else? Well, Marianne and Pablo, really fascinating work. So with COVID and stuff, I'm sure you guys were delayed. What are the next major milestones?
So in the spring of next year, we'll perform the AUV, the autonomous vehicle mission that I mentioned earlier. So that's going to happen before the summer. And then after the summer, we are going to proceed to integrate InVADER with ROV, with a remotely operated vehicle, to execute a whole different type of missions over the next year. So we're booked, luckily, for the next year and a half. After which we expect to really, secure the funding that we need to operate this at the cable like we wanted over a year. And that's a whole different type of mission. So we're going. In the beginning, we thought that the easy way is cable first, and then ROV, and then AUV. So from lander to tether vehicle to free flying vehicle. We're doing a 180 on that because it's cheaper and easier, it turns out, to do free flying vehicle, then doing tethered vehicle, and eventually do a lander mission. The deep sea is a little different than space, similar in many ways, but when it comes to operating and to getting things done, it has its own requirements. And like most of you, we are NASA-funded scientists, so we're looking up mostly, right, into other planets. Our team is learning with the help of course, experts in the field of the challenges of underwater robotics and science. So it's been a fascinating trip. But eventually that's where we found a common ground between all the other agencies and NASA itself, is that we all need to learn how to explore our oceans better. All the oceans, including ours, right? So I think that's the benefit of this partnership, that everybody wins by pulling resources together.
Amazing. I wish there was an international ocean station, kind of like the ISS, but on the seafloor. That would be so cool. Oh, actually, it's almost needed.
I know. I think, hey, that sounds like a proposal.
Yep. Oh, I mean, let's brainstorm. I think that'd be fun. Marianne and Pablo, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I learned a lot. Fascinating mission, InVADER. I didn't realize, Lori, that you made all these cool glass talks. I have to check them out. That's what an awesome way to communicate. That's fantastic. So we're going to skip December because of AGU and the holidays in terms of the NfoLD seminars. But in January, we'll have Ricardo Arevalo, who will be talking to us about planetary mass spectrometry. That should be pretty cool. So with that, thank you so much. Happy Tuesday, and wishing you a fine Thanksgiving and a great week.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Okay.